Morning everyone, welcome to a really exciting demo we've got for you today, and it's a topic which us at Delaware, myself included, are pretty excited about. Subject is leak management, in particular non-revenue water. Just before we go there, just a quick introduction of who Delaware are. So we're an SAP focused global partner, one of 11 platinum partners. In particular, we really focus around delivering value to our customers with the SAP solution suite. In particular, my real focus is around energy and utilities and how we can help customers maximise the value from their assets. And the topic today, as I mentioned, is really around non-revenue water loss, leak management control. It's a huge problem in the globe this time, and particularly in North America and globally as well. You can see some statistics there around water loss on a global scale is significant. Given the pressure on the environment and commercial pressure, financial pressure, it's an ever-increasing area of focus for organisations to deal with this. So we're really excited to be able to kind of position what we are doing about addressing that challenge. Just another element of this is Delaware as an organisation are innovative in nature, and we invest a lot of our money in driving solutions that drive value to organisations, and one in particular is obviously this HydroScan solution. We work very closely with HydroWare, which is the provider of the software, and we've jointly developed this solution called the NRW Cockpit, which I'm going to demo to you this morning. Hopefully you'll get an impression of the value it can deliver. Just to frame where this sits in the life cycle, so we don't just focus obviously in non-revenue water loss, we focus on the whole asset life cycle management, but in particular you can see I've highlighted the area that really is impactful, so harnessing the information that's coming from the field, using advanced algorithms and telemetry to then influence the asset management life cycle is really what we're talking about here. I've just highlighted that area of interaction. Just focusing on specifically the area of value that I'm going to demo this morning, which is around harnessing the information coming from field telemetry sensors, water pressure, temperature, flow rates, etc. Then using the algorithms that sit within the HydroScan solution to drive anomaly detection, and based on that anomaly detection, using that information to drive maintenance and inspection activity from an SAP point of view. And that's really the kind of life cycle I'm illustrating here. My demonstration is essentially going to focus on this life cycle and show the value of what we're doing. There's a couple of things that are really kind of critical if you're going to form any strategy around non-revenue water loss. It comes down to things like management of your leakage recovery. So how do you actually get the leak recovery addressed? Dividing your water network into sectors, so this really allows you to isolate where the leaks are using algorithms to further analyse that. Quick assessment and then repair activities, so having identified that there is a leak, is doing something about that in a really proactive way, which is where SAP comes into the picture, and continually monitoring the network in a really proactive way, so accessing that data, analysing that data, and then reacting in a really proactive way to address the problem. And that's what this demonstration is all about. It's a very early version of what we have a capability to do, so it's a kind of picture of the future. Okay, so what I'll do now is just give you a quick overview of the screen that you're looking at. This is the NRW Cockpit. It's a representation in a geospatial way of your water network. In this case, we've represented Reno, and we've split Reno into a number of what we call district metered areas, so zones that subdivide the water network into areas. And then within each of those areas, we can analyse the information. So if I hover over any one of these areas, you're going to be given a kind of summarised level of information around alert levels and around what sort of incidents taking place. So you can see I'm hovering over zone 3 at the moment, and it's green. If you look at the scale at the bottom, currently there's no alerts from a leak point of view. If I was to move over to zone 6, you can see that there's an alert level amber there. So there's some sort of incident or activity happening in that zone that's triggered an alert. Similarly, down in zone 1, we have a different alert level. So what I'm going to do now is just quickly drill into each of these zones and discuss a little bit about the power of the solution. As you can see from this zone, there's no alerts. We have the sensor information coming in at the top of the screen, and plus some other summary information around things like target minimum, night flow, etc. But as you can see, there's 2 sensors. If I then go down to this lower half of the screen, this is the intelligence. This is where the algorithm is taking that sensor information, aggregating it, and it allows you to overlay your limits or your events, i.e. minimum or high flow rates. So what I've done there is essentially activate the upper and lower thresholds, and you can see that from an algorithmic point of view, the cumulative value hasn't breached either of those from therefore there's no alert and no alarm. So that's a very healthy position from a network point of view. You can see there's really consistent night flow statistics as well. So from a management point of view, you can see that particular part of your network is healthy. If I move over to zone 6, you can see it's a more complex zone. We've got a whole wealth of sensor information coming in there, 6 sensors in particular. I can navigate through these or isolate sensor information by turning it off. So you can see now I'm just isolating down onto sensor 1, and you can use the cursor to actually identify specific flow rates or values depending on what the sensor is. Moving down onto the cumulative value, you can see that that's based on the 6 sensors. So again, the power of the algorithm. And the lower half of the screen is amber, giving you the view that there's a cumulative leak issue on that particular zone. So that's what's triggered the actual alert in this case. So I want to look into a little bit more detail about what's caused that and when that took place. So if I click on the history button, this gives me the ability to open the window of analysis. Okay, you can see there the point I'm actually highlighting with my cursor. We have a breach of a minimum flow level. If I add in the other thresholds, you'll soon see the implications. You can see in that lower section, the minimum thresholds and night flow has been breached at that point. So we've got an issue, and that's generated a cumulative alert because it's not a burst, but it is a leak. So that over a period of time has accumulated, and it's driven an alert, driven by that particular anomaly in the cumulative flow. If I then look at another example, in this case I'm going to show you something that is actually a burst event rather than a cumulative flow event. This is looking at zone 1, but I already know there's a significant problem given the color schemes that are in the zones. So again, if you're a manager of the network, you know where to focus your attention immediately. Again, you can very clearly see that we've actually got a burst event there. And again, that's what's driven the reaction from an algorithmic point of view. It's not a cumulative because of the implications and the numbers involved from a flow rate or pressure or temperature. So the reaction is, we've got a burst event, do something about that rapidly. So I've just given you a bit of a sneak peek at the sort of capabilities that are coming through the HydroScan solution, in particular the algorithm and what it does with the sensor data. The next part of the flow that I showed you earlier on is really, what do I do with that information from a reaction point of view? So I've got field engineers or people in the field that will go out and inspect or address the issue. How do I pass the information to them? And that's the part that's really been missing historically. What we've done at Delaware is develop the integration through BTP to trigger an event in SAP based on an anomaly on the leak side. So what you're looking at now is essentially the event log. So this is when something happens in the network, in a zone that's outside of the threshold. It will trigger an event, anomaly detection, and we'll go into the event log. At this point in time, as a manager of the network or an engineer, I've got the choice to intervene and generate a call in SAP. This is a very basic integration that we're demonstrating here. It could be a lot more advanced. We could put in some intelligence that would trigger the thing automatically. But from a demonstration point of view, we've just engineered this as a manual intervention integration. So I'm just opening up the event log timeline here, so you can see there's been a number of different events across the network over the last month. A number of them are already in an active state. So the software and the interaction between SAP and the HydroScan isn't just about driving an event. There's a cyclical exercise that it'll update and come back and tell you you've created a notification in SAP and it's active, or you've created a notification, it's been processed and it's finished. So there's always a visibility of the current status of what's going on in terms of reaction to the event. So what I'm going to do here is I I'm going to actually trigger, based on that Zone 7 event, I'm going to trigger an interaction with SAP, and then go look at an SAP screen and you see the reaction. So this has now triggered an event API through BTP to generate a notification in SAP. So that notification at the bottom, you just literally saw me it coming up actively. That's the one I've just generated. The way we've designed this, and this is highly configurable, is that it will represent the leak through a number of concatenated information in the title. So this is a medium leak, not a burst. And it's got the date stamp in the title. So again, like I said, this is something that we can configure depending on what you want to see in the descriptor for the notification. Other significant pieces of information which are important is around the functional location. So one of the key things, if you're an SAP person in plant maintenance in particular, is to identify where the leak is taking place in the network by technical object, whether that's a pipeline or a valve or any other piece of asset, and then reflect that back onto the Hydroscan. So we've built the data mapping between a Hydroscan and SAP, so that when you click the button, there's a direct linkage to the technical object, and that's what you're seeing here. So there's not much more for me to do now in terms of the demo. Typically what we would do now is look at this notification, go through a planning exercise, decide whether or not we want to react, create a maintenance order that generates a field activity, and then affect the change. Go through the whole planning life cycle of a work management process. But you get the point. I think this is the trigger, and then we can do something with it. As I mentioned before, what you'll see is a feedback loop. The notification will be released, will be processed, and that updates back into Hydroscan. And once that notification is finished, it will come up with a status of finished, so you know that the work's been affected and actually the problem's been addressed. Just one last thing for me to finish on is that this software isn't conceptual in nature. We've actually, with Hydroscan, implemented this at a number of utilities in Europe, and it's shown immediate impact upon NRW numbers. Typically, a network has about 20% loss, so this has had a material impact on non-revenue water percentages purely by introducing an intelligent piece of software. What we're seeing is we can further extend that value by integrating that through to SAP using BTP as the platform. Really appreciate you listening to me today, and hopefully that's given you a good idea of capabilities within our solutions, and feel free to reach out to me at any time. Thank you.